Good afternoon. It's my pleasure again to welcome you to the introductory webinar of the GemCab Academy. Shortly, I'll be introducing you to our speakers who will, between them, be providing the vast majority of the content over the coming months. But firstly, I just wanted to explain the rationale for setting up the Academy and how the Academy will work. As many of you will know, my background is in distribution. And I have the pleasure and sometimes the angst to work with some of the world's largest fund management businesses, and at other times, some of the more innovative firms. However, throughout that time, one of the issues that troubled me the most was the constant requirement to keep up to date with changes and developments in the market whilst going about my day-to-day work. And as GemCab has evolved, we too have had to keep up to date with all the numerous changes that are taking place in our industry. Not just distribution, but regulatory, legal, compliance, administration, etc. One of the key elements that I take particular pride in is seeing the growth and development of your businesses, and we hope that we can make a contribution in achieving your goals by helping you get access to quality training and coaching over time. We know that you are very busy growing your businesses and shaping your future. So if we can help you keep up to date with the changes and keep you informed of what is coming up and what you need to be focusing on down the line, then hopefully it will make all our lives easier. To that end, we have gathered together a group of individuals and firms who are experts in their subjects. Over the coming months, we have planned a series of webinars, seminars, and workshops that will cover all aspects of the industry and that we hope you'll find useful. The vast majority of the sessions will be no more than an hour long, although some of the coaching workshops may be longer. The full schedule will be sent out after today so that you can see what you maybe want to sign up for. And I hope you'll join us for those sessions over the coming months. All you'll need to do is register, and do please remember that these sessions are only for GemCab associated affiliates and all their employees. So please spread the word and tell your colleagues. So now let's get started. So first up, we have Thomas Chalmers from Leading Figures. Thomas is a partner at Leading Figures, which provides consulting and coaching services to clients in the finance and professional service industry. Thomas is an executive coach and his experience spans the asset management, actuarial, accountancy, banking, fiduciary, and analyst professions. As well as one-to-one coaching, he's engaged as a team coach at a board and senior management level, helping teams improve their effectiveness. He's a chartered banker and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers in Scotland, and has spent over 10 years in commercial banking. So he's pretty well positioned to give us some invaluable insights. So, Thomas, over to you.
Thanks very much, Stuart. I really wasn't expecting such a great introduction. Thanks ever so much for spending time with me.
Hopefully I've not stolen it.
Thank you. Well, as Stuart said there, everyone, I'm a partner in Leading Figures, along with Russell Borland, who's on the call with me today. As Stuart was saying, we work generally with mid to senior leaders on really a variety of themes, mostly relating to leadership, team effectiveness, interpersonal skills, because almost everyone we meet has a relationship issue that gets in the way of progress. And sometimes the relationship that mostly gets in the way is the one that we have with ourselves. We generally deliver our services through one-to-one coaching, as Stuart was saying there, as well as team or group coaching. More often than not, we interleave the two. So in other words, we might work with a team as a unit, but between the team sessions, we'll meet with the individuals for one-to-one coaching. But for the purposes of the GemCab Academy, and as with the other faculty suppliers here with us today on the panel, Russell and I will be facilitating 3 group sessions over the course of the next 12 months. And those sessions from Leading Figures will be: 1, building better relationships with clients and colleagues. The second one is creating and leading high-performing teams. And the third is developing effective leadership skills. Now, each of these 3 sessions are really going to offer participants the opportunity to share and explore their experiences in a confidential, safe space. And just to elaborate then on those three areas very quickly, the first session, building better relationships with clients and colleagues, this really has never been tougher, in the sense that maintaining good relationships over virtual reality during the pandemic has been extremely challenging for many. And moreover, as we've been hearing from our own clients and contacts, building new client relationships from a standing start over virtual reality has been even more challenging. Now, technical skills have really always been coveted in financial services, but the ability to connect with people and build relationships has become even more important, and we'll be exploring how to do that effectively in this first session. In the second session, creating and leading high-performing teams, this is, of course, a variation on the same theme. Incidentally, these themes came through on the survey that Stuart and Leading Figures co-distributed to GemCap's clients. So these themes have come from that survey. This second one, creating and leading high-performing teams, as I say, builds on the previous theme of relationships. But how do you develop a team of people really around a common vision? How do you then empower, enable, encourage, and challenge the team in a way that every member performs at their best and for the benefit of the greater good? So that's really the focus of our second session, creating and leading a high-performing team. And finally, in our third session, we'll be helping participants to think about how they develop effective leadership skills. As I was saying earlier, leadership is about relationships, and to be an effective contemporary leader, we really need to be able to tap into other people's emotions as well as manage our own. As well as leading others, we need to be able to lead ourselves effectively, even in those moments when we might be suffering from low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, or poor boundary management. So those are the themes that we'll be contributing to the GemCap Academy, and we do hope that you'll be able to join us for all three sessions. Thank you, and back to you, Stuart. Thanks.
Thanks, Thomas. Thank you very much for that. Now, next up, we've got Julia Kirkland from FSTP. Now, Julia is the senior partner at FSTP and has spent the last 10 years helping financial services firms respond to regulatory change. She's got over 30 years experience in the investment management arena, helping clients with board governance, performance management, training and competence. And I did have the pleasure of working with Julia for a number of years whilst at Invesco. And some of you will remember she has presented on the FCA senior managers regime a couple of years ago. So she's no stranger to GemCap. So with great pleasure, over to you, Julia.
Excellent. Thank you, Stuart. What Stuart didn't say, yes, over 30 odd years in financial services, what he didn't say was I was actually a child when I started.
Yes.
I would say that for those of you that I have met before, obviously it will be a pleasure to catch up with you again. And for those of you that I've not met who are thinking, oh my God, they've got whole sessions on regulation, why do we have to do this? I'd rather have hot nails driven through my fingers. I think what I would say, and what I hope we bring to the party for you, is a practical approach to regulation. I've been a regulatory consultant now for over 15 years. And we found over time that in actual fact, a lot of attitudes haven't changed, that regulation is a hurdle, it's an incumbent. It can feel like it's detracting from business. And whilst I have an enormous amount of empathy with that, what I would say is that we're in a regulated world. It's obvious to us, but in a lot of instances, what we need to do is think first and foremost about our business, our reason to be, and how we can use regulation to best effect. How can we live in this regulated world, but make sure, God forbid, that we're still in the business of making money, not just for ourselves, but also for our clients. So I would hope that myself and my colleagues, a number of whom are SMEs in various aspects of regulation, some of them are ex-regulators as well. So they bring in something of that practical knowledge of how the regulator is looking at this, and they're, generally speaking, their direction of travel. Because I think sometimes we can often internally think about regulation as various discrete boxes to tick. And actually taking a step back, and we would hope to be able to help you with some of this, taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and the direction of travel can often help us adapt where we need to adapt, change where we need to change, and incorporate the requirements of the regulator. Because obviously we completely understand, and what we will try and convey to you is the real issues that the regulator has with asset management. I call them issues. Probably there's a nicer way of saying that, but there's an awful lot of light on asset management, particularly since the issue with the banks. And we do have to accept that the regulator's attitude towards us and what we do has shifted. So helping you walk through that in what we would hope would be practical sessions where you can ask really granular questions about how can we make this work for us, and how do we adapt and how do we change. We hope to be able to bring that practical application to our sessions. So we will be taking you through things like the new prudential rules, which are coming in, which currently a lot of you, I would imagine, have left to your CFO to try and sort through. But it is going to have an impact for those of us who are in senior management roles, and you probably need to understand more of the language that you need to be using when you're communicating with the regulator. We'll look at things like MiFID II and how that's going to change in light of the fact that we are now decoupled from Europe. So that's a work in progress. We're working through that, and we're trying to put that into some practical application for you as asset managers. And other aspects of regulation which might be hitting you. So to be honest with you, I will take offline with Stuart, but we'll reserve the right, if we think something really important has come up, if we think it's really burning and we have our slot, and we feel that there's something that we should bring to you because we think it's important for you to know about this now, we'll do that. Obviously, through Stuart, there'll be plenty of communication, so you'll have plenty of time to think about whether or not that's useful to you. But hopefully that's what we bring to the party, some practical application, making it perhaps a little more interesting than you might imagine regulation might be, and really thinking about that embracing of regulation and how we might be able to communicate this more effectively to the people that we'll rely on back at base camp, back in the business.
Thank you, Julia. That's very comprehensive, and to make regulation entertaining, I think we'd all appreciate that.
It's easy. It's easy. Leave it to me. Leave it to me.
Talking of entertaining, let me introduce Pat Sanderson from RBC. Pat may well be known to you for other reasons, but Pat is the head of global client coverage in the UK for RBC and is GemCap's go-to guy. He's been instrumental in helping develop the relationship between GemCap and RBC and with his colleagues in Dublin, Claire O'Brien in particular. And between him and his team, it ensures a very smooth running of that relationship. Now, before his roles in financial services, Pat had a very successful sporting career, captaining the England Rugby Union team and playing for a host of Premiership teams. But these days, he's more often tackling bunkers and the rough rather than 120-kilogram forwards. But hopefully today he'll give us a bit of insight as to what RBC will be covering. Over to you, Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. I hope you do a better job of describing what we're going to do than I do of getting off the tee box. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm good that this is recorded, because I will replay those kind words back to you at our next relationship review. But long story short, look, we've been a close partner of GemCap for some time, and I think when we were first asked to join the academy, so to speak, we thought it was a fantastic idea and a great place for both, I guess, us to impart some information and insight, but also for us to learn. So we're very pleased to be part of it. And I think our focus as it relates to our interaction and our input into the academy is going to be very much around leveraging the expertise that we've got in-house at RBC. Many of you will know RBC, I suppose, in part, but look, we're a top 10 bank globally. We employ 100,000 people across the world. And I think uniquely, we're a universal bank in so much as we effectively have 5 businesses that cover off all aspects of banking. And the reason I mention this is really just to give you an idea of the expertise and the reservoir of knowledge that we've got internally, which I hope to bring to bear really for the GemCap Academy over the next, I guess, 3 events that we'll be involved in. To give you, I guess, an idea of what those events might be, we're going to look deeply into the world of tokenization and blockchain, and I guess the risk and infrastructure that wraps around that, both from an investment perspective right through to the service provision required and some of the regulatory aspects that will surround that. We're going to look at the practical application of some of the regulatory horizon as we see it and how that impacts some of your peers. And then also, I guess, give you some insight into what we as a corporate have done at RBC and our clients have done in trying to succeed in this post-pandemic era, as it were. So again, it's very much around leveraging the knowledge and the expertise that an incredibly large global bank has at its disposal, which is not always that easy, I don't think, to find and to surface. But it's going to be a lens both through that of a service provider, but I think quite uniquely through RBC as a corporate. So hopefully, but very much looking forward to the next year as a participant and a receiver of information.
Thank you, Pat. And you're not too bad off the tee, but we'll talk about that another time. Now, it's going to be a great pleasure to introduce Bella Funscape. Bella, again, is probably very well known to a number of you today. Bella is a well-known speaker, often an outspoken speaker at conferences. I've been privy to that. But she has over 20 years' experience in the research and analysis of the UK, the European and Asian asset management industries. She set up Funscape in 2010, and before that, she worked at Lipper as global head of research and publications. Early in her career, she worked in investment banking and a London-based consulting firm where she specialised in market entry strategies for retail and institutional asset managers. So she's well versed in this area, and she's also fluent in 4 languages. Hopefully, she'll speak English today. Bella, over to you.
Hello, thanks for the introduction, Stuart. Thank you very much. Yes, so I've been around for a long time. Like Julia, I started as a child. I just want to make that point. So my focus is distribution, and as we all know, right, you can have a bloody brilliant product, but if you can't get it to the forecourt, it's a problem. So distribution is really, really important, as we've seen this week. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about really is going to be about how the distribution landscape is changing, because it has really changed. If you go back 20 years ago, it was really easy to sell a fund in the UK. You sold it to the advisor, you paid him a big retrocession, and Bob's your uncle, he sold it on to his clients. That's now changed. And so my sessions are going to be really focused on how the distribution landscape has changed, the rise and impact of gatekeepers and professional fund selectors, and the not so professional ones. So, you know, just to give you a little bit of a taster of that, in the market today, around 45% of all flows, all fund flows on platform are under some kind of influence. So that means that if you're not on that gatekeeper's radar, if you're not in a fund selectors list, if you're not in a model portfolio, then you are missing out on some substantial business. So this is one of the things that we're going to look at. We're also going to look at how to sell your funds in Europe. Because the UK is not Europe, and Europe is 27 different countries, and each one has some very unique, some unique characteristics. So we'll explore that. As Stuart says, I do speak several languages, and I started out writing about, you know, all the different European markets, so I have a really good understanding of how they work, what you need to do, etc. And the other two areas that I really want to cover during my sessions are going to be what is a successful and unsuccessful market entrant or market strategy. You know, we've seen lots of people come in. We've seen how they've focused on their markets, how they've focused on the right channels, and how they've used data to understand. And I think that's a really important part of being successful in distribution, is understanding how to use data, how to leverage it to really get the best start to your entry into Europe and the UK. So I think that's all for me, really.
Love it. Thank you, Bella. I'm sure we'll hear your languages over this course of the next 12 months.
Including my filthy language, by the way.
Now to Benji Elston at White Marble Marketing. I've been very familiar with White Marble Marketing, one of the market leaders in the marketing space here in the UK. And Benji works there and helps fund managers increase their brand exposure and awareness across their space. He particularly specialized in business development and commercial skills from his over 12 years in the industry. But he's particularly passionate about the move towards sustainability and ESG investing. And he's the lead in pushing this development and education of ESG for clients and the wider industry at White Marble and their learning opportunities. So I'll pass over to Benji, if I may.
Thanks, Stuart, very kind. And you should have asked not to follow Bella, because it's really a little bit of a tough ask, isn't it? 4 languages. Anyway, delighted to be here and delighted to be amongst such a great group of panelists. It's a real pleasure, and I hope that we can connect some of these themes together as we talk about regulation, talk about distribution. How does that all mean in terms of the context of what businesses are trying to do? But I think as a specialist consultancy in the marketing space, we are very aware that asset managers are trying to retain assets, win assets, build better client experience, or develop and demonstrate and articulate their sustainability credentials, 4 big things that are a real challenge. And we help businesses try to do that. So we work across the piece and across the globe, from very small boutiques, platforms, wealth managers, to large global asset managers who are dealing with extremely really complex multi-boutique, multi-franchise affiliate businesses, are really trying to put marketing in the driving seat as a provider and a deliverer of business development. So our skills very much exist around these concepts, and I very much hope that throughout the sessions that we'll run, we'll help people who are struggling to get to grips with articulating their proposition. And what's the 5% that you've got that makes you different? Because we're talking about a very congested space with an oversaturated market. So where is the 5%, and how do you articulate it, and how do you demonstrate that externally? How do you find competitive advantage in that? And sustainability is an enormous part of that, and I'm very happy to dive into that in more depth, because a lot of my recent background is driving that. We'll look at the development of a web project, not the tech, not the end point, but the thinking about the user journey. What does the user experience look like? How do you drive that appropriately through a website to deliver the outcomes that you're looking to do? likewise, how do you use content to drive your sales funnel? What is the segmentation that's required to build the appropriate content for different audience types, and how do you push them through the funnel so that marketing really can play a role in driving and business development and then client servicing as well? And I think what a lot of people struggle is where does social media fit into that? What role within the marketing mix does it play? So we'll talk about that breakdown of that integrated marketing strategy and offer some guidance potentially where social can play a role. So that we can just bring to bear experience from dealing with a really wide range of investment managers around the globe and offer some best practice potentially, particularly for businesses that maybe don't have a lot of resource, don't have a lot of budget, but know that they need to kind of compete and front up in this area. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we can offer some valuable insights.
Thank you, Benji. That's great to hear. Some valuable sessions there ahead of us. Last but by no means least is, I might say, a friend of ours within GemCap, Brian Higgins, I've known for a number of years, one of the best known lawyers in the Irish marketplace, Dylan Eustace. Brian advises asset managers and fund service providers on carrying on business in Ireland. He's a specialist in the structuring, establishment and operation of all types of investment funds, from UCITS, ETFs, alternative investment funds, and Mancos and AIFs. Brian is currently a member of the Irish Funds UCITS Product Steering Group and is a former member of the Council of Irish Funds and a former chair of its legal and regulatory working group. And it's a pleasure to welcome you here today, Brian. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Very nice introduction. And again, yeah, just to confirm, we're the law firm. So Dylan Eustace is one of the leading Irish law firms in this area. We have offices in New York, Tokyo, and Cayman. But as Stuart said, being the leading firm in this area, we have a full spectrum of funds that we advise, from UCITS ETF to private equity. And we're lucky enough to work with Gemini and their UCITS platform. And I guess the whole idea of the academy is very appealing to us as well, in terms of Gemini offer a service which is intended to make your lives easier. But as Julia touched on earlier on, there's been huge growth in the funds industry over the last number of years. Since the financial crisis in Ireland alone, the assets under management for Irish domiciled funds has grown from 1 trillion in 2011 to 3 trillion in 2020. And it's in that context that regulators have really focused on the funds industry. And so in terms of topics, we would have a wide choice of what we could discuss with you. And while Gemini work to reduce and minimize the amount of effort that you as investment managers have to put in terms of addressing regulatory requirements, there's no escaping it. And you need to work with the manager as part of that. And in that context, I mean, you would have a choice ranging from corporate governance, fees, ESG. There's many areas that have been an area of focus. And as Julia said, we will reserve the right to look into and talk at the seminars and the areas that we think are most up to date and most relevant to you. In that context, in our forthcoming update, we'll be looking at liquidity risk management. And this is an area that has been on regulators' focus for the last number of years, since financial crisis, since Brexit, since COVID. It's constantly there, it's a constant. But earlier this year, at the request of ESMA, all 30 European regulators within the 27 EU member states carried out a review of UCITS liquidity risk management. And in that context, the central bank issued a letter to industry in May of this year, asking all UCITS managers to conduct a review of their liquidity risk management policies and practices, and indicating that they wanted a clear framework in place, and indicating some weaknesses around that they saw in the industry generally, whether it was at the design phase of your risk management policy, making sure it's appropriate for the portfolio and the investor base, not taking into account pre-investment forecasts efficiently to avoid presumption liquidity, stress testing, and also, and this is very relevant to us in our structure, a higher level of oversight of delegates is something that's required. So the interaction between managers and investment managers is something that the regulator has been quite focused on, and that's why we think it's very topical for now, because this review is required to be carried out by the end of the year. And so you will find that, listen, this is something that every investment manager is aware of, and I'd have to say that when ESMA and the bank did their reviews, they did indicate that it wasn't that they were finding huge numbers of managers not meeting the requirements, but you can be sure down the line they'll do a themed inspection, and so everybody has to carry out this review. So there will be a level of engagement, and that's the area we're going to focus on initially.
Thank you, Brian. Well, that concludes our speakers, and I'd like to thank each of them in turn, and to you for attending today. We hope you found the introductions of interest, and this has whetted your appetite to attend the Academy going forward. We will be sending out the schedule shortly, and I hope that you'll want to attend. Please extend this out to all your colleagues, as we're not restricted by numbers, and we hope you'll want to attend our first series of seminars in the run-up to Christmas. Apologies for the technical issues at the beginning, but I'm sure my colleagues at GemCap will say, thank the Lord, Stuart, you can't hear him. But until our next meeting, our next session, I bid you good afternoon, and thank you for attending, and thank you to everyone on the panel today. We'll speak soon. All the best now. Bye-bye.